Council meeting for the evening of Monday, September 16th. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Rodmacher?
Here.
Alder Brunson?
Here.
Alder DeBoer?
Here.
Alder Wood?
Here.
Mayor O'Connor?
Here. Alder's home for some more excuse, is that right? Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve?
It's not included in the
Oh,
Nope,
there is
not in
none.
the packet this time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Aren't any minutes? Okay, I'm sorry. Should have scrolled down. We will move on to appearances. We have, in addition to a presentation of the 2023 audit, we also have a local resident who'd like to make an appearance, Kathy Carew. Kathy, if you'd like to come up to sit at the table here by the mic, who would like to speak about the property tax and the referendum. If you could state your name.
Hello, my name is Kathy Carew. I live at 4905 Rothman Place here in Monroe. I'm here to discuss the upcoming referendum and property tax. I know we have two informational meetings coming up, but wanted to get some thoughts out there before. Recently, when it was uncovered that the school district had our overdraw budget of $1.8 million with so many eyes looking over it, I started to wonder how it could happen. I was then curious about the city of Monona's budget. I decided to go back and look at the last 6 years of my property tax. 6 years being not too far back, but some history. Our home is in the $550,000 range with no improvements since that frame time. In 6 years, our property tax has increased 51%, and the city part, 69%. I was wondering if this has happened to everyone else. I looked at the 6-year history of 17 properties on Access Dane. These properties are neighbors, friends, and family members' homes. We know the houses. It turns out that we did have the biggest increase amount over all the others. I was unhappily surprised that the lowest increase in property tax was a house in our price range had only increased 3% over the same 6 years. Again, ours 51, one similar, 3%. This part of the system is not equitable or fair. But to move forward to get the bigger picture, I took out the highest property, ours, and the two lowest at 3% and 6%. That left 14 homes to compare. They averaged an increase of 30% over 6 years. That's about 5% per year. But a little 1,200 square foot house right next door to us went up 35%, and a big house on the lake went up half of that at 17%. It's supposed to be 1,000 in value. This is just not justifiable. So moving forward to the property tax that the city collected in the past 6 years, the city's website has a history of Monona's operating budget and the tax levy, and it can be easily read. In 2017, the levy was $6.5 million, and in 2023, it was $9.5 million. That's an increase of $3 million, a 46% increase. That means in 2023, you have $3 million more in your operating budget, and that will stay steady and increase because of the increase in property values. Yes, prices have gone up, but the city's numbers have also been going up. When you say that we are landlocked and have no real potential for new construction, you imply that we are in a standstill. That is not true. Every time a new permit is pulled for home improvement, it increases the property's value and the tax goes up. There's multiple tear-down houses projects going on every year. The property doesn't go up, but the dwelling has improved twofold or more and increasing the tax. And without anything done to homes, the values just keep going up and up. In better trying to understand how this works, I read the state law only allows city to increase property tax revenues based on net new construction. I'm not yet understanding how that all is. In 2024, Monona's allowable increase was 0. So I'm not sure how that all works, but maybe it can be explained in upcoming informational meetings. I just know that our property tax has gone up substantially in just the recent past, and that increased the operating budget dollars also. I would like to point out the survey that you sent out did not reach very many people. 5 of my close friends and family did not receive it. You write that 1,000 residents responded, but I actually read it was 940. who responded. 59% who said they support the 3 million increase would be about 554 people. Monona has an average of 2 people per household. That would mean about 277 households out of 4,100 households in Monona. That is just about 7% of the homes that voiced their opinions. That is very low percentage to be representing the whole community. When the city states that we are losing so many staff members, you say it's because we cannot keep up with the neighboring communities that can pay more. Well, if one left to go to Middleton, that is not a comparison. Middleton has 2.5 times our population and 2.5 times the square miles. Of course they can pay more. How many of those 1 in 4 employees from Monona retired or the family decided to move not necessarily because of the job? There may be more reasons why people leave. Do we know? Yes, we have more challenge than being close to Madison, dealing with more situations, and the police force should be supported. But we are a community that is, but are we a community that is wealthy enough or in need of so many assistants, coordinators, or developers and more managers? A neighbor suggested that maybe we should hire a budget officer. Hopefully the questions and answer meetings will be productive. It's hard to imagine how many hoops you are juggling at the same time in running our city. It surely must be a challenge. Thank you for listening and for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
I would just say, obviously, we're not going to answer all the questions right now, but you're welcome to make an appointment to speak with Neil. And we do have a finance director who is in charge of the budget, so I'm sure that
Yes.
the two of them can answer your
We've met
questions.
once before.
Absolutely.
I plan to do that.
Okay.
Good.
Tonight was a meeting. So
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
Next item is presentation of the 2023 financial audit. Mark, were you going to introduce this?
Yes, sorry, my phone had, my computer wasn't working, so I got my phone here. Amber from CLA is here to present our 2023 financial statements and audit. I'll kind of let her present.
Excellent. Can you guys hear me okay?
Not really.
Can't hear you very well.
Both of you.
Will, can we turn this up now?
Let me also
I don't know if
grab
you can hear
my
us.
sound was not working before, so try with the headphone here. Is it better now?
A little,
A
but
little
not
bit.
really.
Will's going to see if he can.
We're gonna turn them up a little on our end here too, I think so.
Okay.
Is that something you can do, or?
I think we'll just check
Okay.
it out, so. I'd say go ahead, Amber, and get started. We'll go from there,
Okay.
so.
Hopefully, maybe it's a little better now. I have a headset on.
There we go.
Ooh.
Ooh, there's-
Hang
yeah, we're
on,
getting
hang on
feedback
a
there.
minute, we're getting a lot of feedback.
Whoa. Let me go back.
Sometimes we have to make some adjustments to the,
Yeah, just keep going and I'll just keep adjusting.
Oh, okay.
okay, all
Okay.
right, okay.
Is the feedback on?
Yep,
Is the feedback on now?
Just keep going, and then our specialist will
Okay.
make adjustments.
Okay, perfect. So as Mark mentioned, my name is Amber Jurisky with CLA, a principal out of our Green Bay office. So I'm going to run through the financial statements in kind of a summary form. If you have questions, please interject or reach out after. I would be happy to answer any of those. So I'm going to take a couple things from the financial statements and then kind of go through our governance communication. Mark, do they have the electronic copy
yes.
of that?
Yes.
They do.
Everyone was sent,
perfect.
did everyone get the electronic copy? It was sent
Yes.
this afternoon?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent. I'm going to take, like I said, I'm going to take a couple items out of the financial statements, and then I'm going to go to the governance communication that summarizes the financial information. So in the financial statements on page 1 is our independent auditor's report. We've audited the accompanying financial statements of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information for the city of Monona as of and for the year end of December 31st, 2023. In our opinion, we've determined that the financial statements that I just previously referred to, are materially correct, and that's the highest opinion we can provide from an audit standpoint. The rest of the independent auditor's report talks about the basis for our opinion. We don't look at all of the transactions of the city. We use a materiality, risk-based approach, inquiry with city personnel, et cetera, to determine our testing. The responsibilities of management, they are responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements And then our responsibility from an audit standpoint is to issue an opinion within the standards. That is all detailed out in that independent auditor's report on page 1 through 3. And some additional disclosure information that I'll let you read through. The other piece in the financial statements, before I get into the financial information, is all the way at the back. As part of the audit, we also review the internal controls of the city. We don't issue an opinion on those controls, but we would be required to disclose any non-compliance or any findings that we had. So we have no non-compliance, and we did not have any findings to disclose. We do prepare the financial statements for convenience. Mark reviews those thoroughly and could potentially prepare those, we feel, so we don't have any finding for that, but nothing there. We do have a management letter comment that I'll mention here after I go through the financial information, but that's a recommendation and just kind of a reminder to continue to evaluate. So we'll talk about that shortly. So then in the governance communication, or the management communication that you should have received as well, first talks about accounting policies. So there were no new accounting policies that were implemented in 2023. We did evaluate for the impact of GASB Statement 96, which relates to subscription-based softwares. In 2022, the lease standard, GASB Statement 87, was applicable, and that we did implement with the city. But there were no subscription-based softwares that fell within the criteria to be included in the city's financial statements. Accounting estimates, there are some accounting estimates included within the financial statements, but none that warranted the disclosure to governance. Those estimates would include capital assets, your proportionate share in the Wisconsin retirement system, and your proportionate share in the state life insurance program. There were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit, no disagreements with management, and we had no uncorrected misstatements. So page 4 of that management communication or governance communication kind of gets into the numbers, the summary of the governmental fund balances. So to start with the general fund had approximately, this isn't on this page, but I'm just going to pull this out. The general fund had approximately $3.1 million in cash as of December 31st, 2023. For fund balance, the general fund had about $2.3 million. 1.9 of that was unassigned. We always like to use the unassigned fund balance as a benchmark for financial health in comparison to your general fund expenditures. So the 1.9 million of unassigned fund balance is approximately 28% of your general fund expenditures. There's certain, depending upon your cash flow, there's certain, I would say, benchmark percentages that you want to be between. And that can range from, I have clients that kind of can range from anywhere from 20% to 40%. Again, depending upon your cash flow. Are you very reliant upon state aids or property taxes, and what's the timing of when those come in? That impacts that, I'm going to say, desired percentage. So the city is currently at about 28%. That's a healthy fund balance from our perspective. Obviously, what I would say is continue to monitor it. That percentage in 2021 was about 22%, and in 2022 was about 21%, and now 28%. So a healthy fund balance, but continue to monitor that as you go through your budget processes. And are you assigning fund balance, meaning you're balancing the budget with fund balance, etc. Keep those things in mind. Also consider what are some maybe one-time expenditures that I want that the city wants to use or to use some of that fund balance, making sure that that's not really a reliant on for a reoccurring expense. So if you want to use the unassigned fund balance, that happens. It can happen. It's not saying you can't, but try to limit that to one-time type expenses versus the reoccurring. So that's been a conversation point that I always like to have. And then again, the general fund, so you can see the general fund in the unassigned fund balance went from about 1.4 million in 2022 up to the 1.9. So you can see that increase here in 23. Debt service, the debt service fund has approximately 2.7 million available. Obviously, that is all restricted for debt service payments in the future. The Renew Monona Affordable Housing has about $750,000 in fund balance. The library, about 106. Cat TV, about 24,000. The ambulance, about 72. The FMLA, about 658,000. The room tax has about 790,000. There are some donations for about 148,000 that are outstanding, that are available. And then you have your capital projects funds. So tax incremental district number 4, 5, 7, 9. 4 has about 170,000. 5 has a deficit fund balance, but again, with the tax incremental districts, that can fluctuate, and depending upon what kind of projects and timing of increment, et cetera. And I'll talk about the tax incremental districts here shortly. 7, about 295,000, and TID 9, about 40,000. Your general capital projects has about 2.8 million in fund balance, that as of December 31st, 2023. So the total governmental fund balance is about 9.8 million. The one item I want to talk about as well before I get into the tax incremental districts is the debt. So the city's debt limit is about 97 million, and currently the city has GO debt of just general obligation debt of about 47 million. So approximately 50% of your debt limit. Obviously your value, very high value, so that helps. That a lot of that debt is TID debt, or tax incremental district debt. I believe to the tune of about 30 million of that. So that will be repaid with increments in future years. Then if I go into the tax incremental districts, tax incremental district number 4 has unreimbursed project costs. So fund balance is going to be different than the unreimbursed project cost, because the unreimbursed project cost takes into account the outstanding debt that you have. So the tax incremental district number 4 has about 2.4 million in unreimbursed project costs, with a termination year of about 2031. Tax incremental district number 5 has net unreimbursed project costs of about 7 million, with a termination year of 2034. Tax incremental district number 6, about 675,000 in unreimbursed project costs, and a termination year of 2037. Tax incremental district number 7 has a deficit of about 295,000, or not a deficit, excuse me. They have already recovered in excess of $300,000 with a termination year of 2042. Tax incremental district number 8, about 2.3 million, with again a termination year of 2042. And same with TID 9 of about 18.8 million of unreimbursed project costs, very new in that TID. The next pages give a summary of the summary breakdown of the fund balance for each tax incremental district and the debt outstanding on each of those that you could review. I don't want to spend a ton of time on those details, but we have it broke down by year, principal, and interest for each one. And that goes through TID 9. Then on page 11, as I mentioned, the debt that is outstanding and the legal margin for the debt, you can see there about 93 million for a limit, about 47 million is outstanding in general obligation debt. Any questions on those numbers?
Anyone?
My only question is whether we have the same page numbers as our presenter
Right,
does.
I'm not following that in this document.
The TIF numbers are on page 11.
But I assume that you're
I don't think the
directing us
report you're
to.
talking about they have, I just gave the audited financial statements to them.
Got it.
I didn't realize the other stuff was on there, so it's my fault.
Yeah, so in the governance communication, once you get that, or the management communications, I'm sorry about that, I could have shared my screen. But they are all, all of that information is summarized in those pages, in about 5 pages of information.
Okay. So
Gotcha.
we have the full document, and the one you're referring to is a summary.
Yes,
Is that right?
correct, yes.
Does Mark have both? Could Mark sort of translate?
I have the documents. I'll email them tomorrow to you.
Sure.
She has a screenshot if you need to.
Yes, am I able to share my screen here?
Yep, I
Let me
can
see if I,
see.
oh, no,
Hold on,
it
I
will
can
not let me.
I can fix that, Amber, hold on.
Thank you.
Okay,
There we go. Try it now.
there we go, perfect. Do you see a PDF?
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So this is the governance communication that you'll receive.
Could
or
you
the management
increase,
communication.
could you increase the magnification so it fills the entire screen just for,
Yeah.
thank you.
So this is what you'll receive is the management communication. So as I mentioned before, this is where I started talking about the accounting policies and the accounting estimates. And then there's some additional disclosure here, but let me get to the financial. So you will see, here's the governmental fund balances that I first referenced. So here's the general fund of the 2.2 million and the unassigned fund balance of 1.9 million. And then it breaks down each individual fund. And then the summary of each tax incremental district where I mentioned the unreimbursed project costs broke down here with the termination year. Total unreimbursed project costs for all the TIDs of about $31 million. And then these next pages will take each individual TID and show their revenues and expenses for 2023, reconciling back the fund balance that each fund has. As I mentioned before, the tax incremental districts, fund balance is kind of misleading because there is the debt that's associated with it, which is included in here as well. So if I take tax incremental district 4, TID 4 has $170,000 in fund balance available. But if I scroll to the next page here, there's about $2.6 million in outstanding debt to be paid through 2030. So that's where the difference between the unreimbursed project costs and the fund balance come into play. And then this will go, I primarily focused on the unreimbursed project costs, but this breaks down the summary for all of the TIDs. And
I just had a question. When you're, let's see, when you're referring to the unreimbursed project costs, that's basically the TIF assistance that we've given to the developer. And then it looks like there's a schedule for those that are to be repaid that you're showing based on the development agreements we have in place.
so the net unreimbursed project costs could be a combination, well, it could be the developer incentives, but it is a combination of those developer incentives, any infrastructure costs or costs that the city pays, and then the debt that you would have taken out for that. If there's some developer payback on those, then that would get accounted for as well within the net unreimbursed project costs. But that number, so like if I take a tax incremental district number 4, that will take into account, and hopefully you can see my screen okay here, it will take into account all of the revenues over the cumulative life of the TID, so back to 2000 in this case for number 4, and then take the expenses. As you can see here in number 4, most of the expenses are principal and interest on that debt that's outstanding. But that developer incentive is a part of this 2.4 million as unreimbursed project costs. However, say there was a developer incentive in year 2000 and now you've generated increment over years, essentially that could have been repaid already. But now there's still outstanding debt that could be for a developer incentive, or it could be for infrastructure costs, capital costs. of about 2.6 million in TID 4, for example.
Right.
For example,
Does that
TIF 4, I'm sorry. For example, TIF 4 is actually Monona Drive. So there's a lot of the infrastructure work and right-of-way purchases in that. So a lot of that debt's related to that type of situation.
Right.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, I mean, I guess my bigger point is it's not unexpected that you would have deficits in TIDs, because that's how they work, right? So,
Correct. That is the intent. And as you get, let me go back here. So your project costs, your net unreimbursed project costs, you would expect to see this unless you have a substantial project that the city decides to do. But generally speaking, those reimbursed project costs will increase for a period of time. And then you'll start to see those net unreimbursed project costs decrease because the increment is continuing to rise and your debt balances are decreasing over time. So like TID number 7 has already over-recovered their costs, and that goes out to 2042. So you have a lot of time for project costs yet in that TID that you could do some projects potentially within that, but then it could go to an unreimbursed position. So that's expected to fluctuate over the time because you have such a long period of time. And generally speaking, your increments start, some are even negative, not just for the city, but I've had clients where they have like a negative increment almost, and then you'll continue to increase that increment as the value increases and more development happens.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on the tax incremental districts?
Looks like we're good.
Okay. The rest of, once you get this, if you have any additional questions on this, feel free to ask or reach out. Mark has my contact information. Be happy to go through any of that with anybody. The rest of this document is the representation letter, management taking responsibility. So I'm gonna kind of skip over, and I want to talk about the water, sewer, and stormwater and transit quickly here. So I'm going to so just to talk about the enterprise funds for the city, I'd like to look at the cash flow because in an enterprise situation, it's a full accrual. So all of the long-term activity is recorded on the balance sheet and the income statement, and it can distort the actual cash operations. So what happens is all of that non-cash type activity gets pulled out. So looking at the cash flow, the water utility generated cash from operations of about 1.3 million and had a total change in cash of about 500, just shy of 500,000. What we like to look at here is, are you generating enough cash from operations? So meaning, are your rates set at a point where they can sustain maintenance costs, make capital improvements, and pay your debt without consistently going in having a cash deficit? There is timing situations of when debt is borrowed and when the capital projects happen. So there could be an explanation there. What I would recommend, or what I always recommend in a cash flow situation, is take the cash flows over a few year period. So a 3-4 year period, and look at your cash flows. If you're consistently have deficits in operations or aren't able to pay for capital upgrades or maintenance costs, those types of things, that's a time where it's a good time to evaluate your rates and should they be increased accordingly. Or what kind of capital projects do you have on the horizon in the next 3 years? Making sure that you're looking ahead, but making sure that you're setting a time to look at the rates and make sure that those rates then account for the future capital projects in the next few years. So I always like to talk about having a 3 to 5, 7 year outlook on what your capital improvements need to be, and then being able to plan ahead for that. So the water, as I mentioned, had a surplus of about 500,000. Sewer generated cash of about 390,000 from operations and had a total change in cash of a surplus of 180,000. The stormwater was cash from operations of about 437,000, and then a total change of a deficit of about 118,000. Mass Transit, a deficit cash, operating cash of about 198,000, but there's the property tax and the grant subsidies, so a surplus of about 89,000 in transit. So the cash balances in each of these: water, just shy of 3.8 million, the sewer, about 1.8, 745,000 for storm, and about 225,000 for the mass transit. The other piece that I like to look at in terms of the cash flow and how this ties in is what is your operating cash versus your restricted cash. So there's certain restrictions that your debt carries, and you're required to have certain funds set aside for debt redemption, debt retirement. Maybe there's even an equipment replacement fund required, depending upon the debt structure of each debt issue. So the water utility, as I mentioned, has about 3.8 million in cash. 3 million of that is operating. So about 760,000 is restricted for those debt purposes. The sewer utility, of the 1.8 million, 1.5 of that is operating cash available. And the stormwater, all of that is available for operating cash, and same with the transit. So I like to continue, as long as, in addition to the cash flow and looking at that over a period of time, I like to look at this operating cash versus restricted cash. The city has a good balance of that, where most of your cash is not restricted. So you, for maintenance projects, those types of things, you have cash available and cash on hand, continuing to evaluate that year to year. Any questions on that or the utilities?
Anyone? No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Excellent. Otherwise, that's what I had. I wanted to do a summary level. Sorry you didn't have the same governance communication in front of you, but hopefully that recap kind of helped. But as I mentioned, if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that is the summary I had for you this evening.
I just emailed it to everybody too, so if you
Okay.
get an email, it's in
Thank
the
you, Mark.
email.
Okay, and I'm sure we'll
The-
all take a look at it, and if we have any questions, we'll get your contact information from Mark. If Mark, and I'm sure Mark could answer things too.
Yes.
Is that okay
Perfect.
with everybody?
In addition to what Mark probably just emailed, there should have been a management letter comment as well. And I'll just close with this. We did include a management letter just mentioning journal entry approvals, policies and procedures, just a reminder to continuously evaluate those internal controls as technology changes, if personnel are changing within departments and so forth, continuing to make sure that things are documented and as segregated as possible. Kind of have a small finance area, so that makes it a challenge, but the city council's oversight and so forth, and the administrator's oversight helps with some of that. But Mark does a great job, very responsive, helpful to us, and works well with the department, so we appreciate that. But we've been including a lot of this in most of our clients, just as a reminder to regularly evaluate those controls, and then we break down some of those areas that could be helpful. So that's what this comment is. Not saying that anything that we identified anything to be necessarily, I'm going to say, wrong, but that's just a recommendation overall.
Okay. Well, thank you. Did anyone have any other questions? Mark,
Yeah.
did you have anything to add?
No, I did not. They're excellent to work with, so I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. That was pretty understandable. So
Yes.
which is always-
It's a lot of information.
It is a lot
Right,
of
but I
information,
appreciate the presentation.
yeah.
I guess
Teresa?
I guess my only question is not so much with the presented materials, but with our own internal procedures and policies.
Mhm.
Is having such an audit like this something that we do, how frequently?
Every year.
Every year the
Yeah.
city does this, and I really do appreciate being brought into this conversation.
Yeah, I do believe this is actually having Amber or the audit firm actually come in and do that direct presentation to council is
Yeah.
a regular
Yeah.
item that we try to do every year.
Yeah.
Not that we shouldn't say you shouldn't listen to what Mark and I are telling you, but we want to certainly make sure council has direct access to Amber and hear her reports directly from them as well, so.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right, well, thank you very much, Amber. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we're glad
Excellent.
to know
Thank-
everything is in good shape.
Yes, excellent. Thank you for your time and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
So just, Mayor, if I could just one last comment, is I
Neil?
would want to thank Mark, of course, he already jumped off, okay, Mark, but I want to thank Mark for really all of his work, that it does this,
Yeah.
that this goes really as smoothly. First of all, he obviously, Mark has worked with them before, they've got a great working relationship, they kind of know Mark knows what questions they're going to ask, and they usually know that where the answers are going to be, so they do work incredibly well together. Been involved in communities where auditors have been around for weeks, trying to hang and find information and sit there, and I mean, I think they spend maybe a week in our office, and that's because they can find all the data, and Mark
Mark's really on top of
is
it.
really on top of it. So he really does an excellent job, so.
Fantastic.
And Mark used to be an auditor.
And
Long
I
time.
think I would say
So,
it shows,
Right.
because they communicate, I'm like, I'm just gonna like walk by, I'm like, I'm just gonna let
They've got their
them
own
do their thing, yeah,
Their
exactly,
secret
so.
language,
But yeah, they are, yeah, so they do have they have been very great to work with, but I think really a lot of credit goes to Mark for
Yeah.
the information and the way he tracks it and the way he presents it, so.
All right, well then we will move on. There is no public hearing, no consent agenda. We have several council action items under unfinished business, and it's Thor's night.
It really is.
So item 1A, consideration of resolution 24-8-2436, City of Monona resolution to pursue Soul Smart designation and submit a solar statement of support put forth by the Sustainability Committee. Is there a motion to approve this?
I'd like to move to approve.
Second?
Did you second, Patrick?
Yep.
Okay. Thor?
All right, thanks, council. So this is the second read here, so I won't get into all the details again, but again, the Soul Smart program is a free assistance program offered by the Department of Energy, and it provides local governments with assistance to implement best practices to encourage the implementation of solar energy. Since our last meeting, or the first read, I've added some slides that I had prepared for the Sustainability Committee when they recommended this to council back in June. Those slides just give a better overview of the actual pathway and the actions that would be required to achieve a bronze designation, for instance. So to summarize that, to earn a bronze designation, we would need to issue the solar statement, the letter of support, essentially. The draft is included in the packet. A permitting checklist would have to be posted on our website. And then we would need to perform a zoning review. And again, Soul Smart or their technical assistance team would provide that zoning review for us. And then it would be up to us to work with them to determine which of those recommendations we can implement. Then we need to achieve 20 points in 3 categories: permitting and inspection, planning and zoning, and then government operations. We've already achieved 20 points in government operations for implementing rooftop solar on 4 municipal buildings. And then in the other 2 categories, we've are already about halfway there, just from me attending some workshops hosted by Dane County and as part of their ongoing collaboration with other Dane County municipalities. So really there would be minimal staff and time investment to achieve a bronze designation, and I believe that it would help the city achieve our renewable energy goals and be a big step towards achieving our ambitious 100% renewable energy goal for city operations by 2040.
Any questions?
None.
Anyone else? Doesn't sound like there are any. Hearing none then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Next item, B, consideration of ordinance 8-24-778, amending chapter 263-5 and 263-6 of the Code of Ordinances regarding length of lawns and the regulation of natural lawns. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thor.
Thank you. So again, this is our second read, so I won't get into the details here, but I'll summarize the changes. So the draft ordinance was recommended by the Sustainability Committee back in June, and I worked with department heads to draft the new language. The Sustainability Committee felt that the existing ordinance was too restrictive and limited the ability for residents to implement natural lawns. And given the many benefits for pollinator habitat, for stormwater retention, for biodiversity, the committee believed that the ordinance should be amended to remove some of those barriers. The existing ordinance is not really used. We've had only one permit for a natural lawn in at least the last 10 years, likely more, and it's not fully enforced. So the new ordinance, the new language would remove the need to obtain a natural lawn permit, to submit a management plan. It would remove permit fees, the requirement to notice neighbors, and it would remove the 10-foot setback from property lines that's currently required. I should note that a clear border would still be required despite the removal of those setbacks, and that border could be turf grass or it could be natural materials such as stone or mulch. It also removes the ability to burn a natural lawn. Additionally, the term natural lawn has been updated to planned natural landscape area to better reflect the intentionality and the maintenance that would be required still. And I do want to stress that fundamentally enforcement would not really change under the existing ordinance. A planned natural landscape area would still need to be intentional and maintained. It would not be able to pose any form of safety hazard or cause sightline issues from sidewalks, driveways, intersections, crosswalks. It would not be able to harbor noxious weeds or rodents. And I think that covers it.
Questions, anyone? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item C, consideration of resolution 24-9-2737, operating budget amendment for 2024 certified local government sub-grant put forth by the Landmarks Commission. Is there a motion to approve this?
I'll move.
Second.
Thor.
Thank
The
you.
guys of the Landmarks Committee.
Yeah, all right. So this resolution relates to the Historic Preservation Fund subgrant that the city was awarded earlier in the year for $22,000. The grant has no city match required. It's for the nomination of the Frostwoods Historic District to the National Register of Historic Places. And the operating budget amendment is needed because the city will be reimbursed for the project expenses from the grant.
Questions? I know you discussed this last week, I think as well, or 2 weeks ago. Any questions?
No questions.
Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Bernstein?
Aye.
Alder DePula?
Aye.
Alder Wood?
Aye.
Alder Rademacher?
Aye. Motion passes. Item D, consideration of resolution 24-9-2738, authorizing staff to execute a professional service contract for National Register nomination of the Frostwoods Historic District, also put forth by the Landmarks Commission. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thor, did you have anything to?
I have nothing to add from the previous meeting. Again, this is just would authorize us to enter into a professional services contract with our preferred bidder from the RFP that was issued for that grant with the UW Milwaukee Cultural Resources Management Center. The bid was for $21,720, so it would allow for $280, that remaining balance, to be used for staff time, which is an eligible project expense. And let's see.
Any
Nothing
questions?
else.
Well, this is
Doug?
basically implementing the budget amendment we
Right.
just approved.
Mhm.
Correct.
So, no questions? Aline, do you need a roll call for this? I don't think it's the actual contract, is that correct?
Correct. There would be some back and forth required between us, UW Milwaukee, and the state, just based on the contract needs that they each have. So there's no draft contract in front of you, but I'll be working on that with those entities and run it past the city attorney for their final approval before it's issued.
Mayor, I would just recommend him making the motion contingent on final approval by Attorney Cole.
Okay. Someone like to amend their motion?
I will move to amend the motion such as it is contingent on approval by Attorney Cole.
I'll second.
Any questions about the amended motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And now we are back to the original motion as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Great.
And
Thank you,
Thor,
Council.
since you're here, I'm just going to move on to that
Yeah.
one other item under new
Great.
business.
Yes.
Let's do
I'm
that.
sorry, Doug. I know you're.
It'll be quick.
2B, and this is new business, so first read. Consideration of ordinance 9-24-779, amending the Code of Ordinances pertaining to the Landmarks Committee chairperson put forth by the Landmarks Commission.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. So the Landmarks Commission has been discussing this for a few months now, and it was recommended at our August 27th meeting to amend the ordinance pertaining to the structure of the commission. So the Landmarks Commission consists of 6 citizen members and 1 council member, and the ordinance as written currently requires that the council member serve as chair at the appointment of the mayor. The commission has discussed amending that to allow for one of the citizen members to also chair the commission, still with the mayor to appoint the chair. So the proposed amendments in front of you would allow for either a citizen member or the council member to chair, with the chair being reappointed annually. This is fairly common in peer communities, and I did confirm with the State Historic Preservation Office that this change would not jeopardize our certified local government status and our ability to apply for Historic Preservation Fund subgrants. And the proposal was recommended for approval August 27th by the Landmarks Commission. I should note by a vote of 3-1, Mr. Chapman voted nay, but he did want to state that he does support the concept of the amendments, but not necessarily the process, and believes that this type of change should be implemented in a way that it would apply to all city boards, commissions, and committees equally.
Well, that is a topic for another day.
It is.
Obviously.
It is.
Any discussion or any
Well,
questions for Thor?
But to build on that, when I was just new to council, I recall a conversation with Alder DePula about how other communities structure their committees. And as Thor just said, it is not uncommon at all for citizens to act as chair, in this case a co-chair, or is still appointed by the mayor. And so I brought it to the Landmarks Commission. It felt like, of the committees that I chair, it felt like the right place to start. We have some really outstanding experts in the room And I have to say that since starting those conversations, the engagement at our meetings has doubled or tripled. People feel heard. They feel that their opinions really matter. They feel empowered. We've had such good energy, just for what it's worth. And I think that we have tremendous talent in our community. And just because you're elected, just because you're appointed to a commission, doesn't mean you know more than other people that are on that committee by any stretch. It is often not the case whatsoever. You're just there to run a meeting, right? So I really am happy about where we are with this decision. I think it could be, as Mr. Chapman and as Thor explained to you, there's perhaps a model here that we could follow.
Which I guess is one thing to consider, though, because
Yeah.
now, if I were to appoint a citizen
Right.
chair, and actually it used to have a citizen chair
Yeah.
years ago, then that person is just there to run the meeting and not
Yeah.
be involved in discussion, so, for the most part. Doug, did you have something?
Yeah, to me, this feels like a step backwards. We, as the mayor referenced, there used to be a citizen member who chaired it. That was because there were no alders on the committee at all. The change was made to include an alder on the committee with the idea of making it perhaps have more impact, at the council, because one of us would be chairing it. I guess, to me, that feels like, for one thing, just chairing a meeting, because we all have experience now running meetings, sort of know what the rules are and that kind of thing. Certainly, it's important to have the expertise and the institutional memory on the committee, but I don't see why having them run the meetings, it would really be an improvement. And I guess it would also make another person that our staff would have to be interacting with, in addition to, because presumably the alder on the committee is not just going to be, checked out. They're still going to be involved in it. So, I mean, it's not a huge thing. I just think it's a bad idea.
I think setting the agenda is an important role that a chair would help to fulfill with the city staff person. I take your point. It's a point I hadn't considered, and I'm glad you raised it. So thank you for that. I may change my mind.
I mean, the only thing I would add is, they're also not accountable to the
Right.
voters because they're not elected.
I think that's something I mentioned, too, in the discussion. Patrick?
Just to talk about it a little further with, as to what Teresa was saying. I chaired the CDBG Commission for the City of Madison as a citizen. Also the Affordable Housing Committee, also the Section 8 Advisory Committee. There's a long history of chairpersons doing significant work for municipalities and then eventually taking another track into elected office or what have you. So, I wouldn't discount it just because we haven't done it or because we feel that the committee wouldn't have as much influence over the council as it would if there was a council person chairing the committee. I think developing citizens into roles is also important. Just my opinion. It's, respectfully.
Well, and obviously, there are some committees we have that were required by law for a citizen to chair.
Yep.
So it isn't that none of our committees have citizen chairs. Rick?
Yeah, I'll just say that I was on the Landmarks Commission for several years, and I think we had a lot of turnover in terms of alders chairing the commission. And I think that held us back. I think that held the commission back in terms of maintaining its momentum. And that each time a new councilman came in to chair the commission, there was a re-education that needed to take place. And I felt if we had consistency with a council person who's there for 3 years at a time, it might have made working matters a little more efficient.
I would agree. I think, if I may, I think different committees operate differently. Some of the more, I don't know what you'd say, historically recognized committees like Parks or Public Works or Public Safety, there's very much a top-down feel. The department head, a full-time city employee comes and presents, and the committee is more of an oversight body. Whereas some of the committees, which don't have a full-time city staff person who has just a few hours a week to dedicate to the work of that committee, those kinds of committees really draw upon the members and the chair to execute and take off, execute some of the work and take it off the plate of the city staff person. It doesn't have to happen. It's not written into the job description of the chair. It's often just left to the personality of the chair. I know I have played that role a number of times, and if I'm doing that wrong, someone should just tell me. But I know that we just have limited resources, and there are things that committee members want to do. I have some examples later that I'll share. And they just can't do them because there's no staff person. It feels uncomfortable just to tell Thor to do something when someone in the room could just do it for him. And empowering citizens in that way, or to be future council members themselves is I think, just a wonderful aspect of running a city. So maybe, I guess, at the end of the day, this model would not work for all committees, but it may work for some.
And certainly members can do work without being the
Yeah,
chair, too.
yeah,
They
yes,
have to be
yes.
the chair to, and they do. I mean,
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who do things that aren't the chair of their committee.
That is true.
Anyone else? Well, this will come back,
Yes.
so thank you, Thor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank
Okay.
you, Thor.
Thanks.
Good job.
We are moving back to unfinished business. Under 1E, consideration of Resolution 24-9-2739, approval of a certified survey map, CSM, to combine lots 7 and 8 of Block 20 of the Lake Edge Park plat, 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive, put forth by the Plan Commission, and this is on for final read. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Second. Thor? No, I'm sorry, Doug?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. As mentioned, this is the second read for the 4111, 4113 Monona Drive certified survey map. The request here is to combine the two currently vacant lots. They would be just under half an acre in total size, and to allow for the future development opportunity there on the site. This did go through Public Works in early August and was unanimously recommended by City Council, unanimously recommended by Planning Commission to City Council in late August as well. Thank you.
This is the lot right next to the water retention pond, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
By San
yes.
Damiano, okay. Did we have a motion? We did, right?
Mhm.
Any questions,
I have
Doug?
one. Doug, does this CSM have anything to do with how many driveway accesses there would be?
Not specifically. The request would be considered when a formal request comes forward for a zoning permit. The site access would be considered at that point. One thing that is looked at as part of the certified survey map is, do the lot dimensions make sense? Are they possible to allow for development on the site? And you could argue that sort of doubling the size here, consolidating 2 into 1, will allow for a more developable site, kind of moving into the future, and could help at least with some of the spacing for let's say if there were to still be 2 driveway entrances, entry, exit, something like that, you would have more frontage on the drive to be able to do that. So certainly there were some comments and concerns that were shared about that during the Plan Commission process, and some of the feedback that the Commission gave was really that would absolutely be considered during the development proposal request portion of the application.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Well, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And then we have one additional item under new business, item 2A, consideration of resolution 24-9-2742, approval of a certified survey map, CSM, to reconfigure lots for redevelopment, including lots 1 through 3 of certified survey map number 4203, lot 1 of certified survey map number 10267, lots 1 and 3 of certified survey map number 15810, and part of vacated West Broadway, approximately 1709 through 1707 West Broadway, put forth by the Plan Commission. Doug, and I think we also have Mr. Mears is here from the. Kevin Pape, I'm sorry. Oh, Mr. Mears is on the
Yes.
screen. Doug, do you want to introduce this and?
Absolutely, and then I'll pass it over. We've got a couple representatives here from the development side, so they can kind of run into the details. But the request here is for the first read on the certified survey map. This would allow for the approved Topgolf that was approved by the Plan Commission. It would allow for the construction of that, sort of the reallocation, the redistribution of the lots over at the WPS campus, and sort of heading west towards the Southtown Office Park. This also includes some reconfiguration of lots as it relates to the existing WPS campus that will remain in place, as well as the possible vacation of a portion of Engle Street as well. I should say that specifically is not included within this. There is an exhibit that is sort of showing that would need to be vacated for the certified survey map to be recorded. But City Attorney Cole and I are working together on that as sort of a separate item that will also be coming through City Council pretty soon here as well. So I can certainly answer any questions, but I know we've got Kevin Pape in the room with you all at the library that can sort of run through a few more details of the application.
Okay, Mr. Pape?
Yeah, I'm with Beerbaker. I am the land surveyor for the project here on behalf of the developer. And as he said, it's a 4-lot CSM at Gisholt and West Broadway. Lot 1 specifically being designated for the Topgolf site. Lot 2 would be for future development. And as he said, 3 and 4 were included just to adjust the lot line.
Okay.
I'm certainly here, I can give you a further summary of it, or if you guys are familiar with it, you can ask me any detailed questions you have on it.
I don't think we're real familiar with it, are we? What do the rest of the board, the council think here?
I mean,
I just have more of a high-level question as far as the order in which we're discussing everything related to Topgolf. So tonight, we're talking about reconfiguring or joining or changing lot lines related to all of the property that will be part of Topgolf, or just part of the property that will be part of Topgolf?
I'm seeking approval on the entire, every lot that will be, one of those lots will be specifically for Topgolf, but we're seeking approval for the reconfiguration of all these lots as more of a whole project.
And Topgolf is.
Topgolf is one of those.
It's about half, right,
Yeah.
of the area?
Yeah, yep.
And then there's potential development on the other lots
Okay.
as well.
So just as with the previous agenda item, we first have to configure the lots before we can figure out what to put on them. Nothing different here. Okay.
Correct, in terms of
Yeah.
assigning zoning, and,
Right.
you know, the lot needs to be
Yep.
established, yeah.
Anyone else? Would you like Mr. Pape to explain anything about?
I guess I did
Doug?
have one question. On the south side, sort of abutting the Beltline, southwest corner, I think, is there a stormwater easement back there? Could you talk about that at all?
There is currently stormwater facilities there. They will be modified and possibly expanded to accommodate the development on this site. The CSM does not have that easement on there currently. I think the design is not finalized yet, so once that gets finalized, I'll know the limits of that.
Okay.
That's something that would need to be addressed on there. One other thing that came up was the underlying utilities for Angle Street. I realize the vacation is not part of this, but the intent of the project is to have those utilities remain public. And I know Plan Commission had asked for an easement over the existing utilities, which we're more than happy to provide. It's not on the CSM currently, but would be. Another item that has come up is there's an existing emergency access for this, the school.
One City Schools.
One City Schools, yes, which is being reconfigured. It currently comes off of Gisholt, and it's, the developer's working with the city to reroute that. I believe they have it worked out already, that it will come off of Broadway.
And Doug, I
For the
assume One
emergency
City
access.
Schools knows about that?
Yes,
I believe so.
it's actually been One City WPS as well as the developer. The city will want to take a look at that, of course, and of course it's benefiting our emergency services. But yes, they have the right to do that, and honestly, I think it's a good compromise. It retains the spirit of what was intended there, but just giving a secondary access point, and this will give it straight to West Broadway. So One City Schools are very much aware of that.
Okay.
Staff has put them in contact with one another, and they've been working well together on that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm good. Any other questions? I can answer them.
Anyone, any questions? This will come back in 2 weeks as well. Doug, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Just that I should have mentioned earlier that as the applicant mentioned, that the just north of the proposed Topgolf lot, that proposed lot has been put forward for future development. That was discussed at Plan Commission, and the expectation is that there would be a general development plan, a precise implementation plan that would come through for that, with future redevelopment opportunities there as well. So sort of that portion between the existing offices and between the proposed Topgolf, I think it's about 5 or 6 acres total. I should have mentioned that the creation of the CSM allows for Topgolf, future development, as well as kind of reconfiguration of existing WPS lots.
Anyone else? I guess we don't have any more questions right now.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Doug.
much. Thanks.
And thank you, Mr. Mears. All right, moving on. That was the last item under new business. Reports of committees, commissions, et cetera. Please include any sustainability and DEI effort updates in your reports. Alder DePula?
No, nothing to report. Public safety did not meet.
Alder Wood?
Parks Board met last week and recommended approval of the Adams outdoor sign proposal at Ahuska Park, and also looked at the operating budget.
Okay. Does that, Adams, does that have, is that going to plan?
Correct,
now?
Mayor.
Is that
The
right?
next stop will be Plan Commission.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything else, Doug? I'm sorry.
Let's see, well, NPO met, I was re-elected vice chair. I highly sought after position.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The only other thing to mention is the trip the mayor and I took the BRT tour.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Rode it from East Wash all the way out to the west end and back, and yeah, it's really nice. It seemed to work very well. Obviously, we weren't stopping. Well, we stopped a couple times at stations. They did have a little glitch with the charger at the west end, but fortunately they have 2 of them, so
Yes.
they were able to use the other one, and it charges very quickly. I think he said it charged about 20% in the few minutes that we were there. So, yeah, that's it.
Okay, Alder Rademacher. That's cool.
Let's see, I'll start off with landmarks. I sent Thor an email this afternoon, kind of jokingly. I said, I've never seen such a Thor-heavy agenda in all the time I've been here. One of the things that the commission has been wanting to do, a lot of members have brought up that they would really like Monona to have some sort of, to do something special for Historic Preservation Month, which is in the month of May. And one of the members brought up that other communities sometimes have a walking tour where people can, by foot, be led in a small group by a docent past, a few homes and learn about them. And so just this Sunday, one of the commission members and myself, we joined the Madison Trust for Historic Preservation, and we took a tour of the Dungeon Monroe neighborhood. We visited, quite a few. I haven't counted them all. A lot of homes, and it was really very interesting. The Madison Trust is an organization that one of our members had reached out to earlier, and they've met with us, and they will be partnering with the Landmarks Commission to supply docents, all free of charge, to train people in Monona to be tour docents, to help us put together the packages, the documents. Like each participant might take home a little list of the houses with a list of the docents, sponsors, things like that. So it is really kind of an exciting thing. There's often not much that we hear from the Landmarks Commission. It's kind of a nice little activity that I'm looking forward to doing in May of next year.
Do they go in the homes, or they just walk outside?
Just the exterior, yeah, just the exterior. But that it wouldn't prevent Monona from doing our own interior tour. For example, one of the Monona residents who lives in a historic home had even offered to have some sort of a kickoff event at her house, which would be really very special, and to allow people to look inside of that. One thing that I took away from the tour, if you're familiar with the Monroe Street neighborhood, there are, every house is a beautiful house. Every house is just something to look at. And what I learned was that, it's not enough just to have a house that has some sort of architectural significance. In order for the tour to stop at your house, there needs to be a story behind the house. There needs to be something about the owner or an occupant that is of interest, and that sort of makes the tour very special. Interesting day. So that's Landmarks. Tourism we're tracking down a date to meet. Neil had sent out a tentative date for our next meeting, so that's still on the horizon. Sustainability Committee met, and the members were discussing their plans for putting together, outreach and educational materials about autumn and winter time, and how in both of these seasons there are small things that we can all do to keep our Lake Monona healthy. You know what I'm talking about, like leaves out of the street when it rains in the autumn, not so much salt on your driveway in the winter. So that'll be some of the things that they're going to be working on. And in particular, I made an introduction with some of our committee members to Christine at MESBA. There were some things that they thought maybe Monona businesses might be interested in. So we'll see where that goes. And then transit was kind of exciting. We reviewed a map of the route with all of the bus stops along the route. And those bus stops were proposed by transit members, and then Madison Metro representatives reviewed the proposed routes with our Public Works team. They drove the routes, they walked the routes, they went out and looked at them, they marked exactly where we would need to build up maybe a ramp in the sidewalk or the curb to get folks up to the bus stop. They marked the map with locations where each of the pads would be built. And there were only 3 bus stops that were moved, maybe just like a half a block in one direction or another, because after further inspection, somebody said, well, it would be more advantageous over here than over there, sort of thing. But the route was almost identical to what the commission had proposed.
Is there a map available of those where the stops are?
Yes and kind of no.
Okay.
The map that was included in the packet didn't have all of the detail so a more detailed document, I think Mark may have a more detailed document, yeah. As far as DEI goes, today is September 16th, which is Mexican Independence Day. Some people think that is Cinco de Mayo, but you would be wrong. So September 16th is actually the day, and I went to a party this weekend that was wonderful. Some folks know the program on VMO Conectados. The host, Shelene, and her family had a Mexican Independence Party, and it was wonderful. A lot of spoken Spanish, a lot of extraordinary food and music, and this entire month, starting today, I believe, and going for the next 30 days or so, kind of mid-September to mid-October is actually Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's just nice to recognize all of the citizens in Monona who come from Spanish-speaking countries, and who really bring a real level of beauty to our community, beauty and talent, and make it really a better place. So thank you to all of those citizens.
Thank you. Alder Bernstein.
The Senior Citizens Committee has not been meeting. Their next meeting will be in November. We're going to try to do it online. It'll be new for the committee, but we're trying to move into modern times in terms of public access. But I did want to mention the open house that's coming up later this month. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It'll be on Thursday, I believe. And there'll be lots of different presentations and events and programs and food and foot care clinics and things of that sort. So I urge you to attend. If you can bring a food pantry item, that would be great. It'll enter you into the drawing of prizes, a door prize. And that's it.
That's from 3 to 5, right, on Wednesday?
Yeah.
All right.
Wednesday, excuse me. Yes, Wednesday.
Chief Cheney. He has a whole book.
He always does.
Because I don't have a great memory, I have to keep notes. Good evening. Just a couple of highlights. The monthly report for the police department was included, so if you haven't had the opportunity yet, please review it and get a hold of me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. I just want to take the opportunity, since you gave me the mic, Mayor, to highlight a couple of things regarding the proactive work your police department is doing. I try to do this from time to time. Sometimes I forget, but they do a lot of great work. So directed patrols, that's particularly when they look at problem-solving traffic initiatives, or if there have been ongoing occurrences of a certain type of behavior, unwanted behavior, crime, or similar activity, the officers check themselves out and proactively do patrols to really try to problem solve. And so last month we did 24 of those. And sort of in conjunction with that, with keeping Monona safe and being proactive in their role, I've been really impressed by the fact that they did 69 security checks. So folks who, many of you have done this, register online when you're out of town and request a vacation watch. The officer pulls a case number and actually actively, if you give permission, will go out and walk the house or make sure that everything, the lights that you say are on should be on, etc. And you can do that online. You can submit a vacation watch on the city's website, the police department's website, and give us whatever information you'd like to give. And we've actually had to make a couple calls to folks down in Florida because of things that officers have found or things that may look out of place. So 69 of those, and so that service is being utilized a lot, and we'd love to continue to keep doing that come budget season 2025. And the reason I bring that up is because that obviously is a lot of dedicated time that the officers have to use in order to make that work. But I think it's paying off in that it's keeping this community safe, and our burglary counts are down, our theft from autos, et cetera, property crime in terms of personal property, not commercial property, is down. Commercial property is up because of big box stores in town that we have very little control over some of the behavior there, although we're working on it. And then lastly, a bragging point. We obviously do a lot of community engagement. Hopefully you saw your officers in a couple of the block parties this month, interacting with folks. But we've conducted 28 community engagement events in the month of August. I did not know there were 28 events, but in looking back and seeing what they were doing and stopping out and checking in and interacting with folks, that builds trust. And it's something that we're going to continue to work on and improve on. And I've not asked them to do any of these except for 2 block parties. So please consider stopping out if you have time. Outside of those 28, those are your officers doing that on their own, finding opportunities, I mentioned in the pastor was here of the new church in town, things like that, that these officers do on their own. So very, very, very proud of them. And then lastly, another proud moment unrelated to the report. Tomorrow I will be attending on behalf of the city the 10th celebration, or the 10-year celebration of the Community Restorative Court for Dane County. We are one of a handful of agencies in Dane County that participates in that program, which I think is a very beneficial program. It's something that during my candidacy as chief, I commented on. I see value and continue to see value in our participation in the Dane County Community Restorative Court. So I'll be there in uniform, so not beverage in hand, but celebrating our participation and continued support for that program. And that's
Great.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
City clerk.
Yes, we'll get absentee ballots this week. I will be sending about 900 out by Thursday.
Wow.
They will be sent out through October 31st for any requests that come in now through then. And then in-person absentee voting is October 22nd through 11/1.
Aline, how does that number compare to previous years? You said over 900 requests so far?
Yeah, it's
Just ballpark.
It's down, I would say, just a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's been sort of decreasing. 2020 was extremely high, and then 22 was
Sure,
a little
COVID,
bit
yeah.
lower.
Okay.
So this is
Got
definitely
it.
lower than
Yeah.
22
Okay.
so far, but
Interesting.
they'll keep coming in.
Yeah. City administrator.
Right, just a couple of updates. Obviously, we continue to work on the operating referendum. We've got some additional public engagement materials and events we'll certainly be sharing with council and with various committees. Public information meeting, our first one is on September 25th at 6:30 p.m. in this room here at the library. So we'll be sending out a reminder for that. Mayor's raised a couple times. It's a comment we have heard a couple of times. Wanted to take an opportunity to just remind folks at the public that we've had comments about in terms of how we interact, I guess, with the school district. Just to remind folks that they are a separate entity from the city. The city council does not have any jurisdiction or governance over the school district. That is the school board and the superintendent.
And its budget.
and its budget. If you have, and so just remind folks, if you have questions or concerns on that, I mean, literally, I guess the mayor can elaborate on her report, but she's actually had people say, how could you guys how can the city have let that happen? And it's like, guys, well,
I've seen,
People are
first of all,
saying
it's-
that?
I've seen some of it, yeah.
yeah, so
Jeez, come
just
on,
to kind of
folks.
remind folks, so if just in Alders, as you're out in the public and you see that, just kindly remind folks that they just it is a separate jurisdiction and a separate governing body for that. So just again, just a friendly reminder to that. So if you have questions, by all means, you should be contacting the school district, and they will, or going to the school district website, and they will have plenty of information out there that they're sharing regarding where they're at with their current situation. One thing Alder Moore had raised previously in terms of looking at potential cuts related to if the referendum does not pass. At this point, I'm taking it on and working with staff to at least identify what sorts of things would be at least on the table, so to speak, to provide a list to council. And at this point, I mean, the short version is we could say we're considering everything, essentially. If we end up, if it does not pass, we're going to be taking a look and making some pretty hard decisions and probably bringing a recommendation for this body's consideration if it does not pass. So we'll have some additional information that we'll be sharing, I think, at the public information meeting, and we'll certainly be getting that out to council in advance of that in terms of at least what sorts of things staff will be recommending that we take a look at. There won't be a recommendation on this is what we think we should get rid of.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's going to be this body's decision if and when that has to happen. So, not a fun conversation, obviously, but it's one we're taking very seriously. I know it's certainly that it could have certainly significant impact programs and services in the city here. So, Committee of the Whole budget for the capital is on September 30th. Just a reminder for council to come in, and we'll be going through capital budget. I think we do have a backup date for later that week, but I think we're going to be able to get through.
We think
it
we're
one
going to
night.
get it through in one
So I
night,
think we're going to
yeah.
be okay. We'll see on that, but we do have that on there.
And is
Mayor,
that going to be about 5:30 or so?
I believe.
Typically, that's
I
when we
think we
start.
have. Let me see. Actually, I think we have it on the calendar. Hold on, I can double check. For September 30th, that is at. I have it 6 p.m. That's what we have listed for right now. We have it hold at 6. Yeah, we could move it earlier if certainly this body would like.
It might
to do
make
so.
sense to move it earlier unless it's a problem for people, just if we're trying to get it all done in one night.
Go earlier,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And we'll have some kind of a meal
Yep.
as well. So let's say 5:30.
Sure.
You can take care of it, certainly. Okay. Mayor and I and Director Stefani from Public Works sat in on a meeting with Dane County Cities and Villages today to discuss the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District budget today. They've been kind of programming out significant increases well beyond what I think the participating municipalities are dealing with for increases. So kind of working with them in terms of trying to identify, just get a little bit better grip and a little bit earlier conversation, I guess, on their budget discussions and working with our representatives on the commission to make sure that those considerations are being really taken seriously in terms of the context of what we as member communities are dealing with. So certainly we've been having preliminary information on their budget presented today. We'll be kind of reviewing that information and working with certainly Director Stefani and I think Director Howard to kind of sit through and kind of question make sure that we're, getting critical things evaluated in there and encouraging them to look at cost savings measures simply as just
Like we do.
similar to what we do as a city here. So, quick update on short-term rentals. We're actually at 34 units. That's on 32 properties right now that we are regulating. I believe there's 2 of them we are pursuing. We're in process of pursuing actual citations at this for their failure to communicate back with the city at this point. There is a certain number, I think I have to go back and look, that our applications are incomplete. We're giving them a kind of a last chance letter to provide their remaining application information. Most of them have paid their permit fee. They simply haven't completed the application materials. So they have kind of a last chance effort to try to get those things in before they're found to be in violation. We did, Director Plowman did double check today. I don't believe there were any new rentals after the deadline of July 1 that were added to the advertising list, so that was good. So nobody new we have to pursue on. Certainly right now we're kind of working through getting all the inspections finalized with our building inspection staff, with our fire department staff, getting both of those kind of worked through and finalized. And then I think there's at least a couple that still require their Dane County permit, but at least I think we're asking them to provide evidence that they're pursuing that, like either an appointment, an application, something to us that they're in progress on those. So we'll have additional updates on that in the next couple of weeks as we go through those procedures.
What happens if these property owners don't complete their application, these few that you're still sort of waiting to hear from? What?
If they continue to advertise on either if it's whatever the short-term rental websites, if they're continuing to advertise and they've not completed, they will be in violation of the ordinance and they will receive a citation.
Okay.
And it's daily fines, isn't it?
We actually have the ability to do, and we actually have said with these individuals, based on kind of the rollout and the slow ability for us to even get on this is back, it can be effective back to July 1st. We've been very clear in communicating that was the deadline really to get things in. If they're communicating with us and working with staff to try to get information back in, giving them the benefit of the doubt up to this point, which I think a majority of them have complied, and we have all of complete information. Unfortunately, the few folks who haven't, it takes an extraordinary amount of time to try to pursue and get those. So we are simply at the point where if they have not complied in that 30-day, we will be issuing citations at this point.
Have there been any complaints about noise or other behavior that neighbors are unhappy about?
There's a couple, I think they just, folks don't like the fact that there's a short-term rental being operated next to them.
Oh.
They're concerned of, well, there's people in and out all the time. Like, well, are they making noise? Are they?
Got it.
Unfortunately, there's no specific ordinance, at least other existing ordinance that they're violating. But we have one essentially that we know is advertising more than what they can legally do. So we're interested, we've got that, we're verifying that through based on our inspection, and once we find that, so they can't do that anymore, you are approved up to X. If they continue to advertise on that, they will be in violation, there'll be a citation issued. So we've had one or two of those folks who've expressed concerns about, there's still people going in and out of there all the time. Well, we need a little bit more than that in terms of making sure on that. So if there's some, depending on if they're 1 to 7 versus the 30 days. We were actually, folks, remember, we were at like 42, I think at one point. Several of them have dropped off and are now advertising as 30-day plus rentals. So they are not subject to the ordinance then anymore if they do that.
Chief, I saw you shaking your head. You aren't aware of any?
And that doesn't mean that they have to have an occupant for 30 days in a row. They just can't turn it over again for another 30 days. I mean, if you're a 30-day rental.
In that case, the rental, they have to be basically arguably, they would be renting a 30-day time period. Because if it's shorter than that, then they're subject to the room tax and everything else.
Right.
My answer, Mayor, is not that I know of, and the reason I say that is because we don't have sort of any record of when we respond to an address that it's a short-term rental versus not. And then, so if officers are out for noise complaints, if we identify them as being, hey, Chief, I think that this is a short-term rental because we're in this early phase, they know to get a hold of me and let me know to sort of red flag that and keep an eye out. But I also have sort of a standing order to my staff, unless the mayor, as my boss and has authority to direct me otherwise. We're not really policing these issues. I don't want people to feel like they can use us for that sort of thing. Welcome to Monona. Here's a police at your door because you didn't realize you were in violation as a renter, that you were in violation of this. So we've referred everything to City Hall, and I think that that's what this body, with the head nods I'm seeing, wants us to do.
But if you had like a noise complaint,
Absolutely.
it would
Just
be complaint
like any
driven,
other-
right?
Like Alder Rademacher's house or Alder.
Oh, yeah, all the time,
DePula's house. They don't. We treat but we would treat everyone the same.
Right.
Why were we singled out?
But
Rick's the partier, come on.
But it would be treated like any other noise violation. You approach the house, you don't even have to know that it's a short-term
Right.
rental. If they're breaking the law, they're breaking the law.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And we ask for compliance first.
Yeah.
And then if we get non-compliance, then that's a ticket.
Yeah.
And I know we have had some residents complaining about noisy neighbors, and then we'll say, well, have you notified the police? Well, no. Or tell me who owns that house so I can call them and yell at them about, no, we're not gonna do that.
Right.
We also
Notify the
encourage
police.
neighbor-to-neighbor communication.
Yeah.
Right.
And to communicate any concerns if they're comfortable with your neighbor. And if you're not, obviously involve us, but let's be neighborly.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have anything else,
Alderman
Neil?
Bernstein, I think you have a
Alder
question.
Bernstein?
Yeah, it sounds like you're spending, or your staff is spending a lot of time on this, but are you expecting that to phase out as we get past this initial phase?
We're hoping so, Alder, absolutely. We think that obviously there's a lot of logistics that had to be kind of coordinated this first time through. We're hoping that gets better. We'll certainly be looking at ways to kind of streamline it and make it a little bit more efficient as we go through, kind of as we get ready for next year, for year 2.
Yeah.
We're certainly going to be trying to take a look at some ways that we can maybe make that. And there may be some ordinance changes that we may be taking a look at some point. But right now, our objective is trying to get through everybody, either get them in compliance and their permits filled out and everything's in, or issue citations to those who aren't following. And once we're at that point, we'll kind of maybe come up for air a little bit on it, and we'll take a look, see if there's some change.
But would you agree that it's quite a bit of time that your staff is spending on this?
Yeah, we have.
It's
I
been
think
a lot.
the other day we had a meeting at the group level. I think there were actually 6 of us. So it was Clerk Hauser, myself, Attorney Cole, Chief McMullen, Dave Martinson, our building inspector, and who am I
Is
missing?
it in there?
And Doug Plowman, our planning director. So we had about an hour and a half meeting of going through each one of these one by one. Where are we at? Who's got an inspection left? Who needs a letter? Who needs, a follow up on? And so it is taking certainly again, it's first time through. It's still been a little different. We think maybe it'll get better in the future, but
Okay.
we'll certainly let you know if it doesn't.
All right, thank you.
Just last thing, Mayor, we did receive 4 letters of interest regarding the Monona Community Festival. One, the primary one is from, I think it's the individuals who are looking to kind of take over for Monona Community Festival. So it's the original. It's a little confusing because it's still the Monona Community Festival. However, it's going to be individuals who are probably taking on leadership roles in that organization. So splitting hairs a little bit.
Is that different from the group of folks that sort of
It's
coalesced around a Facebook?
Right.
It's some of the same people.
Some of the same
Yep.
people, okay.
Exactly. So we're, so got a good submittal from them. Looking forward to having some additional conversations from them. 2 specific event organizing firms saying they would be interested in working with on the. So we're certainly going to be, trying to do maybe some matchmaking there. And then I think the 4th one was actually a music promoter who wanted to help out specifically with the music component of the event. So those were great. The one thing that was great, it was kind of an unexpected bonus, I think, of that process, is we actually heard from a gentleman who operates one of the Hispanic markets here in town. They would like to sponsor like a Latino day at the festival. So kind of excited about that. So reached out. And credit to him because I think his English is not the greatest, but crafted a great email, and so we're working on setting a meeting up, and I have to bring somebody along with me to make sure we can converse a little bit. But
So cool.
sort of kind of a great, kind of a neat way to hopefully get somebody involved either in this event or in something similar going forward. So
And the year they had those salsa music, the crowds went wild. I mean, and the attendance was through the roof.
yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
So last thing, I'm going to take one and make sure the chief is aware that this happened before the meeting tonight. So I was in the city hall parking lot coming over, and a very tired-looking resident came in, was waiting for a police officer, and I asked if I could help her out. She says, "I have a special needs daughter who will not put her seatbelt on." She's like, I was asking to see if there's a police officer who could actually come out here and tell her that it was important. And I said, well, she's like, could you be that person? I said, I will not claim to be an officer. I said, but I will come out and ask her why she doesn't have her seatbelt on. So went out there, and I think it looked like it was being relatively ineffective, but I used my best slowing down in my car and watching them. And by Lord, she jumped across the back seat, and I saw her click, put her seatbelt on. So a success on that one. So I have a brief glimpse into Chief Sky's world tonight in terms of seatbelt enforcement. So just a friendly PSA to put on your seatbelt, folks. So your mom needs you to put your seatbelt on. So get a badge. Here we go.
Are you going to deputize?
There we go. Outstanding. That is so going on Facebook tonight.
That's right.
Is
there a bunny rabbit on there?
So in all seriousness, obviously this was a mom who was trying to do her best, and just put your seatbelt on, folks. And I am thank God I drive by the squads every day on the way out. 'Cause I'm like, it reminds me that I need to put mine on too. So that's it there.
All right, I just had 2 things. Went to the celebration on the shore at San Damiano on Saturday, as Alder Rademacher was there, helping and a guest at the.
And then it all sort of worked out in the end, and I was a guest.
Yeah, and then she turned into a guest.
It turned into a guest.
And it was a really nice event, great turnout, and I have a feeling they raised more money than they did last year, so we'll hear about that.
Having a professional auctioneer was not a bad idea.
Right.
She was kind of magical for nudging people.
She was really good, and I have asked Wes Black, who's now the president, to plan on coming and giving an update at some point later this year as to where things stand. And we are currently working on an updated memorandum of understanding with them, which we hope to have finished within the next couple of months. So, and the only other thing is thank Alder Wood for serving as acting mayor again while I was gone. Doug, I
Happy to do it.
appreciate you taking over, so thank you.
He was really mean while you were gone.
Was he?
Yeah. Yes.
cracking the whip at City Hall.
Yep,
Just
yep.
following us around
Abusing,
all the time.
abusing the council. Yes.
Dropping in unexpectedly.
It's bad news when he
Well,
lives kitty corner, yeah.
It really, I'd say, Alder, it really wasn't unexpectedly. We were glad to see you. We kind of knew you were gonna come in and see us, so.
Well, thank you, Doug, I appreciate it.
Sure.
So I think that's all I had. There are no appointments tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. We'll see you on the 30th.
Are you gonna give it a-
Neil, was it the 20, what was the meeting, the day of the public information?
25th.
25th, that was
It's a
it.
week from when?